What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Phil Perry, as always, alongside, and it is the Aftermath. And the Aftermath is from a convincing win for the Patriots. Bill Belichick, some thoughts from the Greg Hill Show on WEEI on Monday morning.
Yeah, this is our best week in a little while here, so not really sure why that was, but maybe that was part of it. What Jacoby said is, we reached the point where we had to, kind of face the music here, and our captains and our leaders, or some of our veteran leaders on the team, I thought did a real good job this week of setting an example and really challenging themselves, challenging the team, and we got a great response yesterday, so let's try to keep that going.
How's my guy, Phil?
Doing well. Feeling like I'm about to have my best week. So I guess me and the Patriots have something in common there.
Well, feel like you had to face the music and look in the mirror, which is what Jacoby Myers had said in the post game yesterday. We need to look in the mirror and see what we were all about. And that, to me, gets me into my slant, which is what I talked about as a key wasn't offensively or defensively. It was a level of urgency and aggressiveness and intensity the Patriots needed to bring, because against both Buffalo and Indianapolis, they came out flat. Sure, they thought they were prepared. Sure, they thought they were ready to go, but certainly against Indianapolis with the unforced errors, you saw that they weren't. And then against Buffalo, I don't think they matched the level of physical intensity that the Bills brought. So what do you get, though, from a 50-10 win over the worst team in football? And I think what Bill's saying, Phil, is what you do get from it. All right, you get validation that our effort wasn't where it needed to be. And then when it was where it needed to be, after a better week of practice, it results in a 40-point win. It's a AAA team, yeah, but there was an efficiency level the Patriots needed to have. Let me just roll through a couple of these numbers, Philly. Patriots 6 for 6 in the red zone, 3 penalties, 8 for 10 on third down, 3 picks on defense. The Jags didn't go over 200 yards of offense until late in the game. Mac Jones was Pro Football Focus's highest graded quarterback in week 17, 22 for 30, 227, 3 touchdowns. He had 0 turnover worthy plays, 3 big time throws, and an ADOT of 9.0. Best game since the 45-7 win in week 10, which would have been over Cleveland. Aaron Schatz from Football Outsiders. Patriots had a 71% success rate on offense this week. It's the highest for any team in any game against any opponent this season. KC in week 4 at Philly, it's the only other game that was above 68. So this was an outlier performance by the Patriots, even against an ass team. What I take from it, Phil, is you can only play the team that's in front of you. Had they won this game 19-13 and had a game that was competitive until midway through the fourth quarter, they'd still be navel gazing. They'd still be introspective. They'd still be wondering who they were. But the way in which they performed, even against the BP pitcher, puts a little bit of wind in their sails that they needed.
100%. I know the Jags are a mess, and they were even further messed up by COVID coming into Gillette. But for the Patriots to be as dominant as they were, and I think those numbers do a good job at illustrating that, is rare. I mean, the Jaguars did beat the Bills not all that long ago, 9-6. The Bucs almost lost to the Jets this week. Last week, the Lions beat the Cardinals, or that might have been 2 weeks ago. But crazy things are happening in football this year. And something crazy could have happened yesterday, and it didn't. And that's a good thing for the Patriots. So can we tell that they're a great team because they beat up on a very bad team, like almost a historically bad team, in my opinion? No. But that's what a good team does. A good team beats the bag out of a team that should be beaten. And Tom, this is what they did. We've talked about this comparison between this year. Are they going to be more like the 2018 team or the 2019 team? 2018 team beat the Jets last game of the season that year, 38-3. Nobody thought anything of it. That was a horrible Jets team. Kind of shrug your shoulders and say, what can we take from this? Well, it turned out that team was kind of turning the corner and they had found something. And they, maybe you believe in momentum, maybe you don't. It felt like they had it that year. Feels like this could kind of launch them into something where they're building towards something as opposed to just surviving or staying afloat. That felt like an energized
Mhm.
team yesterday.
And you got to look at
regardless of
the
opponent.
the backdrop too. I mean, the week opened with Matthew Slater talking about the threat of the team splintering and needing to stay together. And I'm such a Celtics observer these days. This is kind of like, the Celtics. They have two horrendous losses. Then they beat Phoenix and they survive against Orlando. And you can find the issues that they had in those games, but it's, they survive. It matters. You don't understand how you quickly forget how dire the early week pronouncements were about the Patriots after having lost to Buffalo the way they did, and whether they'd make the playoffs at all. And we were doing it. We were looking at the numbers. Can they not fail to make the playoffs? Who are they? What are they going to be? Well, now they're going to go into a game against Miami, Phil, at 425 that matters not at all to the Dolphins. And I wouldn't be surprised that even though it doesn't matter, it's still going to be a rock fight. And if the Patriots hadn't performed the way they did against the Jaguars, and they closed the final 4 games of the season with a loss to Indianapolis where they decided they weren't going to play until about the middle of the third quarter, then got manhandled by the Bills, then edged the Jaguars, and then had a rock fight against Miami, there would be no confidence going into the playoffs. They needed this win because their chance does exist that they don't walk out of Miami with a win on Sunday. Am I doomsaying or finding a cloud in the sky that's otherwise clear? What do you think there?
No, I
I'm
think
not predicting
you're
a
right.
loss. I'm just saying it's going to be competitive.
I would assume it to be. When you're out of it, what I've heard players say in the past is that not only are you playing for a job as you are every week, but you all of a sudden find motivation in being able to ruin another team's year. We saw the Dolphins do it to the Patriots in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
They ruined the year. They didn't send them home, but in the season finale, the Patriots lost home field advantage because they couldn't beat Ryan Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker. So they'll take a lot of pride in that. We know Brian Flores. We know he'll take pride in being able to finish the season strong. They rattled off a ton of wins in a row against some not great teams, but I think they feel like they're still building something there. They're trying to establish a culture there. They're going to come at the Patriots with everything they have. But there's an opportunity in front of New England here, Tom, because you don't want to be in a spot where the Colts are in all likelihood going to beat the Jags at 1:00 same day.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens, and if the Patriots lose to Miami, then you fall in terms of seeding. And, who knows where it'll end up. We've seen the Patriots be okay with taking a loss because of where it's going to slot them and where the matchup is going to be in the past. Was it Matt Castle who intentionally threw a football out of the back of the end zone
so that they could play the Jaguars?
So, maybe we see a scenario like that play out because a bunch of these teams that are going to be in the playoffs are playing at 1:00 and the Patriots are now playing at 4:25. But you're right. Just big picture. If they hadn't performed the way they did against the Jags, it would just leave the door open for a lot more questioning of this group. And it doesn't mean we know everything about them, but the alternative would have been worse for them.
There are aspects of that game on Sunday that you have to look at and say, okay, well, what does it mean going forward? And I think one of those spots is Kristian Wilkerson comes in. N'Keal Harry is an active, a healthy scratch. And I think that healthy scratching had way more to do with N'Keal Harry's inability to perform, especially against the Bills, than it did Kristian Wilkerson saying, hey, you got to put me in, coach. Phil, you asked Bill Belichick about Kristian Wilkerson's performance. You got a little chip in from Olivia Grace Perry. Let's listen to the audio from your question posed to Bill about Kristian Wilkerson and kind of react to whether or not this is something that we can look at as being impactful going forward, or if it's just a byproduct of Jacksonville. Here's Phil.
Bill, I just wanted to ask you about Kristian Wilkerson and just the decision to make him active, especially, with N'Keal going down. Is that a special teams consideration or what goes into that decision for you and the staff? Sorry about the background noise there.
No worries. I can see you're multitasking here. So
Not going real well. You can tell.
yeah, we've all been there. Will gave us some plays in the kicking game and
offensively, he's had a couple of good weeks of practice and a good week this week, and felt like he, had earned the opportunity, and he made a couple of plays yesterday to help the team. So it's a really kind of a week to week thing on who we activate and who's at the game and who isn't, and so forth. And certainly last week there was a lot of fluctuation on the roster, as you saw from the beginning of the week to who was on the roster to the end of the week, who came back onto the roster. But those were all unknowns as we went through it. So and that's a little bit the situation that all teams are in right now, and a little bit of this time of year. So we'll take it really day by day, but the decisions will be weekly. And Kristian did a good job of preparing all year as he has. Every week he works hard in practice and has improved a lot, both offensively and in the kicking game, and tried to take advantage of his opportunity yesterday. So that's always a good thing for players to get an opportunity and then be able to capitalize on it and show their teammates and the team that they can contribute. So it's kind of how it goes.
Thanks, Bill.
All right.
Yes, I thought that the end of that answer was interesting, Tom. For me to ask Bill Belichick, okay, why Kristian Wilkerson up, N'Keal Harry down, and for him to finish his answer by saying, this is what it's all about, is taking your opportunities, making the most of them, and showing your teammates that you can perform when you get those opportunities. That's what Kristian Wilkerson did yesterday. That's what N'Keal Harry really didn't do in the previous two games. He had 11 targets, 4 catches, about 5 yards per catch in those two games when he was given all kinds of chances to establish himself as a true starting caliber NFL wide receiver in moments when they needed him, and he couldn't do it. And the other guy could, and the other guy was going against the worst team in the Jaguars. But I think the N'Keal Harry experiment might be over now at this point. For them to make him a healthy scratch, Tom, and to call up somebody from the practice squad and to get more out of that guy than it feels like we've gotten out of N'Keal Harry in a much, much, much longer stretch of time, I think speaks volumes. And to me, the entire game yesterday was about making the most of your opportunities. The Patriots made the most of an opportunity. That was the ultimate get right game. And they got right on both sides of the ball. I think they helped boost the confidence of their quarterback, who really hadn't played great football in, I don't know, a month, maybe a little bit more. And Josh McDaniels comes up with some creative play calls, gets some wide open throws, and they put 50 points on the board. And everybody's yucking it up on the sidelines after the fact. Now you have to make sure you don't go overboard with that feeling, right? I think that's what happened before that Indy game coming out of Buffalo. But the fact that they are back in a place now where they're feeling good about themselves, to me, is the big picture story of this game.
Yeah, I think that the sideline elation and the exuberance that they showed was probably more tied to relief than that we got this all figured out. I mean, there's no way to gauge that among all 53 players and the coaches assembled, but there's a sigh of relief when things haven't been going well for you at work, and then something that you try is exactly what you needed to have and it works great and everybody's happy. That isn't like, haha, we got this all figured out. It's like, all right, well, that worked. Wasn't sure it was going to because of the way things have been going, but we put a lot into it this week and it worked. So to me, again, how does this help? I don't know. Does it hurt? Not at all. So 2 weeks of hurt actually led to a week of help. And maybe those 2 weeks of hurt actually make the Patriots look into their souls and say, okay, this is who we are. This is what we are. One interesting thing that I wrote yesterday. What interesting thing did you write, Tom?
Wow. Among many interesting things, eh?
Wow. I was fascinated.
Here's one of them.
Wow. Here's one fascinating thing that occurred to me. This team has maybe more of an understanding of its identity than the 2018 and 2019 teams have. They're more comfortable with it. The 2018 team was still trying to figure out who it was. Even in those final 2 weeks where they started running the ball against the Bills, the Jets, who were 6-win and 3-win teams or whatever they were. And the 2019 team, Brady was still raging against the machine. in the waning weeks. They beat the hell out of the Bengals in 2019. Then they took care of the Bills and lost to Miami in a game that mattered not at all to Miami, which was the worst team in football at the beginning of that year. This team knows who it is. It got shown who it is by Indianapolis and Buffalo in back-to-back weeks. Doesn't mean that they're going to roll through the playoffs as a result of that, because they don't have Gronk or Edelman or James White or Tom Brady. They don't have superheroes who, if they fall behind, you can say, well, hopefully he just plays out of his mind. It's not going to happen with Nelson Aguilar, where he just takes over a game with 11 catches for 180. And it's probably not going to happen with Mac Jones, where he, can just convert, because he doesn't have the guys to do it. He doesn't have the aptitude at this point either. But at least these guys know who they are. Fair? Tell me what a
Totally
great
fair.
point that is.
That's a great point. It's
Thanks,
a great
man.
point. And I think they knew they could do it in 2018, but they just hadn't really tried for a long stretch of time, right? They had tried to be one thing for the vast majority of that season, including training camp. Whereas this team, the identity was pretty clear even before they brought Mac Jones into the mix. I think the fact that they have Mac Jones and they can turn to their passing game at times, and he has shown them flashes of what he can be, that augments the offense in a I would say significant way compared to Cam Newton and what you would have had if you didn't have Mac Jones. But this team still is what it is, and it has been that way since March. It's going to be a heavy personnel team, 2 backs, 2 tight ends, although they're not really even using the 2 tight ends at the same time anymore. If they have 2 tight ends on the field, it's Hunter Henry and Mike Owenu, or Jonnu Smith and Mike Owenu. But that's who they want to be. They want to be physical. They want to be tough. They want to run the football. They want to control the clock. They want to protect the football. And so they are the team that they set out to be. And I think yesterday's game has to make them feel like, okay, we're in a pretty good spot. There's not a whole lot in our playbook that we started in July with that we can't call right now and feel good about,
It's funny, you look, changing gears just a little bit, going back to the N'Keal Harry absence, and as you look at who they are and what they are, you can't help but look at the guys who were on the field and not on the field. Jawan Williams, N'Keal Harry, Chase Winovich got some garbage time reps yesterday. Played pretty well.
I know he played a little bit early.
Played more than G time?
G time?
Garbage time guy.
Oh, sorry. I thought actually Winovich, another guy who made the most of his opportunity, at least when he was in there, Tom, he showed some energy, played with a little juice, special teams tackle. Like I feel like after yesterday, for me, who had been kind of down on Winovich's ability to contribute to this team, his arrow's pointing more in the upward.
It's like a Miles Bryant thing, though. You don't know if it's a byproduct of the opponent, and if you're in against somebody good, thing that we can't use them here.
True, sure.
Or we're gonna have to keep our fingers crossed. But the point is that I was making relative to where they are and where their roster is. There are so many guys that they've got, and it's part of, you're not going to catch every fish, but Devin Asiasi can't play. Chase Winovich, can play against the Jaguars, not much else. Jawan Williams, a healthy scratch. N'Keal Harry, a healthy scratch. Jonnu Smith, a somewhat contributor, where they're trying to, what can we do for Jonnu? Can we give him something he can do? Again, it's not easy to build a team, but it does show, and take Jonnu Smith out of that a little bit, how hard a time they were having figuring out who and what they wanted to be in the 18 and 19 drafts. Just an observation. I don't know if you even have to bat it around with me or if you even agree. Kind of making that Bazooka Joe face that you don't agree.
No, I do. I mean, anytime you've got
we already know that, Tom.
first round pick and a second round pick from the same draft that are healthy scratches their 3rd year in the league, it's not helpful,
No,
so
not helpful.
it's what's nice for them is that they've hit on as many of these free agents as they have. If they hadn't hit on, say, Jalen Mills, if that ended up being a free agent whiff, then the Jawan Williams healthy scratch really comes under the spotlight, because maybe you have him out. I mean, maybe he's playing a bunch of reps and he's already, lost you a game or two because he's not good enough. It's helped them that Kendrick Bourne has become the player he's become, because if you whiff there, then not having N'Keal Harry contribute becomes a real issue. So they've helped kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
They did a great job stocking the shelves when they realized, okay, this isn't working. This is actually expired. Expired.
Expired.
They
Yeah.
did a great job stocking the shelves in places, you know. All right, well, Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene can't play, and we've already figured that out. Let's go buy a couple tight ends.
Yeah, they're plastering over some of the holes that they created for themselves.
Bills Pats 3. Do you think that's a fun matchup for the Patriots? Do you think it's one they would look forward to? The AFC to me is open. You look at Cincinnati beating Kansas City, and Cincinnati's good. They're playing really well, and they could be a threat. But it is a wide open conference, and I wrote that there is no team that the Patriots would look at across the field and say, there's no way we're beating them. And there's nobody who's looking at the Patriots and saying, oh my God, we have the Patriots. Despite Bill Belichick's presence.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I hesitated. I don't know where, if it was on the podcast or somewhere else, where people had started to put the Bills in a class of their own.
Yeah.
With the Chiefs. And I
You
just
said you wanted to slot them a little below them.
Yeah, I just couldn't go there. Maybe I should have slotted the Chiefs a little bit lower too, because they just fell on their faces defensively against the Bengals, who have all kinds of talent. But my Lord, I mean, Jamar Chase is good, but you don't need to cut him free about, 60 yards away from the end zone and just let him trot in for 6. I think this Bills team played its best game here in New England a couple of weeks ago. I thought that was maybe their quarterback's best game of his career, given the stakes and how accurately he threw and how clean that performance was. And I think it'll be fun because I don't think you'll get that again. And so I don't know if the Patriots will win, but I think it'll be closer because of that. I think there'll be a little bit of weather involved, which if you're a Patriots fan, you have to be in favor of that. And so, Western New York, mid-January, like it's going to be cold. It might snow. And man, I know they won the game against the Falcons, but Tom, some of those Josh Allen picks yesterday, that was old Josh Allen. He's not dead. He's still got a little bit of that in him.
It's in there.
It is.
And you know what? Some of the throws that he made against the Patriots probably helped to put the paddles to old Josh Allen and bring him back to life, because there were some throws that he made against the Patriots that you're like, oh my God, oh, it got through. It's like the Brady, I hate doing this all the time, but Brady 2003 completing the pass from his ass against like the Redskins or somebody. And then 3 weeks later, he tries it again against Miami in the second to last game of the season, and they throws a pick. Okay, back to 2021, 2022. All right, let's wrap it up with this, Phil. Peter King has alluded to the possibility that the Patriots would be an ideal team if they match up with the Bills to be the wild card Monday night game. The wild card Monday night game. We're 2 weeks out from that. It would be exactly 2 weeks from today. But do you think we're going to be covering a wild card Monday night game between the Patriots and the Bills?
I'm not sure what the reasoning for that would be, other than because it's a great matchup and they want it on Monday by itself so that it can get all the attention. I mean, I would agree with Peter King on that. I think a lot of people would be fascinated by that part 3 of that back and forth. I just imagine, well, we won't hear it because we already got enough of it immediately following their bye after the Colts game.
No doubt.
What do you think is going through the Patriots' minds if they end up on the Monday night playoff game with then, if they win, a short week immediately thereafter?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
Against a great team, they're going to be thinking, oh, we were feeling sorry for ourselves during the bye, and we had no idea how sorry we would feel for ourselves just a few weeks later. Because
I can imagine Bill would, torches and pitchforks marching on 345 Park Ave, even if they're remote. I don't know, they might be remote, but he'd march down there to an empty building if he had to. Just saying, look, you gave us the latest buy. Then before our buy, you gave us they gave him a Monday night game before the bye, and then a Saturday game coming out of the bye. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, they got shit. They really did get hosed. They really did.
They did, which us saying it is different than them saying it, right? And acknowledging it after the fact. But they
lost 2 days of a vacation. Around a holiday?
2 days of what would have been I mean, I don't know. What do you normally get? Is it, it's not a full 14,
Oh, it's
I don't
December
think, but
10th.
it's about 12, maybe 12 or 13.
Yeah.
You know, so that's, I don't know. It's a significant percentage of your buy. What's 1/6? 18%.
Yeah, 15%. And you had to wait longer than everybody else. All right, you know what? That kind of seals it up. That's called the aftermath pod. We're trying to do the aftermath of the game. We could get into Antonio Brown, but I'm sure we'll pound that to a pulp on early edition, and your radio programs will take care of it. And we talked about it in post game live. It's, you know, it's a sideshow, and it's a sideshow.
I listened to his rap song.
Did you?
Yeah. Didn't care for it.
Well, I'll trust you on that. All right, that's it for the aftermath.
Bye.